Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mix Tank Monday. My name is Mark Abrams, and I'll be reviewing mixes from the Puremix Pro members today. I'm here every other Monday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We have some exciting things to talk about before we get going. So this Friday, a very cool thing is going down. We are having Michael Brower on a live stream at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday. And Michael is going to be discussing the last of the questions for his Browerized method. So if you've seen the Browerized videos on Puremix, any questions that you might still have about that, this is the time to get them in. So this is going to be a live stream. You guys will be able to submit questions live. We also have a newsletter that went out to all the Puremix Pro members where you can submit your question ahead of time. And doing that will help us make sure that we get to it. So if you've been playing around with the Browerized template, or if you've been watching the videos and you're a little bit confused about anything on there, or just wanting Michael to go into further detail on it, that's the place that you can submit those questions for him. And that video or that live stream will eventually be turned into a video that will be the final installment in that series. So again, that's this Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have Michael and Fernando both there to answer your questions about the Browerized template. It's going to be pretty awesome. A week from Friday, we're going to be releasing Era 2 of the Beatles. That is the History of the Beatles Recording Techniques series on Puremix. So Era 1 is up now. If you've already seen that, awesome, you're ahead of the game. And if you're waiting for Era 2, that'll be next Friday. So make sure you check that out as well. Last week, we put out the Daryl Thorpe Bee Gees video, or DG's video, which is the Foo Fighters covering a Bee Gees song named Tragedy, and Daryl doing the mix of that. So if you've ever wanted to see Daryl mix the Foo Fighters, this is your chance for that. So, all right, without further ado, let's get to some Mix Tank stuff. I see a bunch of my friends here in the chat. It's awesome to see you guys. Thanks for joining from all over the place. If you submitted a mix, let me know in the YouTube chat. The way I like to do this is I try to get to as many mixes from the live chat as I can before we go off air. And I want to know if you've actually put something in and if you're here today. So put your username and the name of the song, and we'll try to get to that before the end. So, all right, let's dive in. So I've got some mixes pulled up. If this is your first time joining us, you'll see I've got some cards over on the left side of the screen. So it's got the name of the song, the user, and then in the middle of the screen, we have a player up top where you can drop time submitted or time-stamped comments saying things like, I think the vocals could come up here, or you've got some masking going on here, or dude, that kick drum is awesome. All that kind of stuff. Those comments show up down here in the center. And then over on the right, we've got some information from the user. So they put in where they think the track is at. So track status, the one on my screen right now, they're saying it's a master. And then in the comments, he says, looking for overall feedback on the balance and quality. This is one of the first mixes where I really dug in and followed protocols developed by a YouTube mixer by the name of Jordan Valiorte, who mixes mostly hardcore rock and roll. He's the one source I've found that gives a well-rounded overview of the mixing process and mixing concepts. Awesome. Cool. All right, well, let's dig in. I'm going to hit play and we'll check it out.
Hello. We are the Zits.
And the crowd goes wild. Awesome. Nice work, Regal. Let's see. I think that I saw you over there in the chat too. I'm looking for your username, but I'm having to scroll up a whole lot because there's tons of comments about how good that mix sounded. Nice job. Okay, so I got some thoughts. Let's go through them here. All right, so first things on the intro. I hear the bus clamping down a lot on those big hits, the big tom kick hits that are happening. You can hear the bus compressor kind of slapping things down. And that has a feeling of urgency and excitement, which can be cool. But when the entire mix kind of goes, basically, I feel like the sides and everything, it all kind of like clamps down into the center like that. Let's listen to a little bit of that just to kind of hear it. And hold on. So focus on the crowd. Listen to the crowd while those hits are happening there. So everything's kind of going clamp and then slowly releasing back out. Which again, like it can be a cool, exciting thing, but watch out for it to be a distraction as well. So just watch out on the overall compression on it. The kick drum, one of the things that might help you with that, the kick drum's pretty large, especially as we start moving forward from that section. There's a lot of sub information going on, which like who doesn't love a big sounding kick drum? But there's a large amount of sub going on that's, I think, causing that compressor to clamp down even more. And then there's a lot of 80 to 100 in the mix that's kind of bloating things up and making it feel a little bit murky. So it might be cool to, on an individual level, go through and find out where some of that buildup is coming from and then deal with it on a track by track basis. You can get a good idea for where some of that stuff's happening if you slap an EQ on the mix bus, and then especially if you have like Pro Q3 or any of the EQs that allow you to solo a band and listen to what's happening, you could zero in on that area and see where the buildups might be coming from, and then if you can, deal with it on an individual level. The guitar automation going into verse 1 felt pretty audible to me, so totally get it. You want to bring things down going into verse 1, make some room for the vocal and everything, but I think a more subtle move might help you, because I felt like the guitars were like the big emphasis of everything, and then they kind of like really, you feel them really go down. And that's the thing I talk a lot about on here, about suspension of disbelief, right? So if you think about movies, the whole goal of a movie is of a director is to make sure that you're not basically distracting the person and reminding them that they're watching a movie. You want to suspend disbelief, right? So that might be something where like you try to find a more subtle move, or if you have a control surface, try riding the faders down musically, with your hands and putting a little bit of yourself into it. The vocal feels a little bit muffled for the style to me. I'm used to, especially on like hard rock stuff, you get a lot of like that spitty upper mid range. The first thing that comes to mind is like the sound of an 1176 Rev A. It's very spitty up there. There's like a brightness to it, and you hear a lot of the consonant sounds. I'm not hearing that so much in this vocal. It feels a little bit murky, a little muffled. A lot of like, actually, the comment on the screen from Americ says the 300 to 600 hertz area. Sure, like that might be a good place to check out. And then let's see, the break after verse 1 felt a little bit less exciting to me compared to the intro of the song. So I feel like the intro, you've nailed the energy. There's a ton of vibe to it, especially like, with the crowd thing going. It makes me feel like I'm at a concert, and it's like, it's just gonna like, knock your face off. And then when we get to that break after verse 1, where the band's supposed to be like even more intense than the intro, it feels like it's cut back a little bit on that. I love the panning work on the guitars, especially coming out of that break, going into verse 2. You got some like stereo movement going on in the guitars. That's really fun. It's maybe on the edge of being distracting, as in like too much effect, but I think it's pretty cool, and you could probably just leave it alone because it's really fun to listen to it. The snare gets lost to me on verse 2. That's something to check out. I didn't notice that until I got to verse 2. Where it could either be a volume thing or, an EQ thing. The reverb on the snare could be a thing to look at. but it did feel like I lost the backbeat in verse 2. The hi-hat's very loud and bright going into the second instrumental break. Hearing a lot of that cymbal, it's the brightest sound in the mix to me, and I would look to the other instruments of the mix to make it feel like it's in the same ballpark, if that makes sense. So you've got one very bright element, and then you've got a lot of controlled elements around them that really make, you might have more of a dark mix if you pulled that hat back into it. Which isn't a bad thing, but I would just watch for that thing to stick out. You know, if it's way brighter than everything else, it's, again, drawing attention to itself, pulling me out of the mix. Love the vocal effects at 2 minutes and 19 seconds. That was my last comment. Awesome song. Great job on it. And yeah, thanks for submitting. And thanks for being here, too. I hope that that helps. All right. So we got that one. Let me look in the comments here and see who else has submitted. That was from Regal Standard in the YouTube chat. Very nice. Okay, I see a bunch in here. Mike Conway's in the house. Awesome. Aku Fen did some David Crosby. Can't wait to get to that. Let's go to that right now. Aku Fen. All right, Things We Do for Love. Love this song. All right, so he says, here's a mix from Puremix I did this week, watching the videos coming with it. It was really interesting and an enjoyable, well-recorded song. I hope I respected the acoustic quality. I saw that Fab used many reverbs, but I used only one to avoid complexity. The Arturia Rev Plate 140. I love that freaking thing. It's great. I love the UAD one. I love Little Plate, and that Arturia one really has like a sound of its own, so that's pretty cool. With some tube drive on it to have a rich and vintage sound. Tell me how it feels. Don't mind if I do. Here we go.
Was it something she said about a dream she had? One of those ones that faded so fast you knew it was bad. She dreamed that she's losing you. I guess it's time.
Loved what you did there. That was cool.
So much time reaching through the fear that's holding her here. These are the things we do. These are the things we do for love. At first it's just fun, but love is long. A little each day, you build it that way. It's being around another set of hands. It's not what you want, it's only that you will kindle the flame. These are the things we do. These are the things we do. These are the things we do for love. I'm looking back down these parallel tracks. Where do you stand? Where do you stand? Where do you stand?
Awesome job. Great job. Your name is Phantom in the YouTube chat. Great work on this mix. Heard this one a lot and heard a lot of mixes of this song, and this one is very, very good. I really don't have very many comments for you. Just a few things that I'll mention. I think there's five, so maybe six. The guitars feel just let me go back to the good stuff first. You got the balances really, really well. I really loved all of the vocal effects stuff that you have going on there. I love your work with the plate. I hear you're doing, and you're not overdoing it, which is awesome. Um, that's something, I played around with doing a mix of this song, and that was something that was very tempting, was to kind of do all these really, really cool ethereal effects and all of that stuff. And I think that you did it in a very, very tasteful way. So great job on that. I think overall this sounds amazing. So awesome. The guitars feel a hair bright to me, and that is only, well, they feel a little bit bright, and it's in relation to the vocal. It feels like there was a lot of like low mid cleanup kind of happening on there, in the recording that you're doing on the mix side, just taking out like low mids and stuff, and a lot of the body of the guitar is happening in there. So while I think that you did a great job cleaning up any masking or resonance stuff that was getting cloudy, it might be a little too far in that it feels a little bit clinical, and then the guitars as a result are becoming very bright from it. That's totally a hunch, that maybe you did that stuff. So that's maybe something to look at. The thing I would go to next is finding the focus of the song. And for me, with this one in particular, but as you know, with most David Crosby songs, the focus is really David and his voice and the story, right? The story more than anything. Finding out what is the song, what's the essence of it, what's making it come alive and all of that. And that's very much David. And I feel like he's a little bit recessed back, and then he feels, I want to say he feels compressed, but not in like a you slap too much compression on it kind of way, just in that he feels very flat and stable. He stays in one place for the entire song. It's a very well controlled vocal, and I would say almost too well controlled. I don't feel a lot of movement in him or a lot of dynamics from it, and I think that that's something that would help me feel more attached to David in this mix. Is just like loosening it up, and maybe if you don't find it there and you're not doing a lot of compression, if you have a control surface of some sort, riding a fader and just trying to bring some of that performance into it. And with that, this is something I've been kind of on a kick with lately. Is just like really put a performance into it. Don't do it in the sense of like, is that word too quiet or too soft? Just like when you want to feel him, and you feel like it makes sense in the song, to just ride it and feel it and play the console like an instrument. So yeah, that was kind of my two things for it. Uh, Other than that, I thought those hits on the ones that happen a little bit later in the song, I want to say it's around here. Let me see if I can find an example here. So here.
These are the things we do.
Yeah, and then coming, so the one, first of all, like that's a moment where you can have some low end bottom support and some undertone sustained bottom of the mix, right? Just to give it a big feel there. I know that there's not a lot to work with in this particular track, but that's something that can excite that on those hits. And then coming out of those hits, it feels a little bit thin to me. And then other than that, I heard some stereo widening going on. It sounds like it's on the whole mix. I hear David's a little wide on some spots, and then the acoustics are kind of appearing outside the speakers a little bit. So just, my usual cautionary tale about stereo widening, just be careful with it that it doesn't start getting phasey and feel like you're swimming a little bit. Um, it's not crazily overdone. I was just hearing a little bit of that. So, but overall, man, this is a really awesome mix, and that's a hard song to mix. I think you did a great job on it. Very cool. I hope that helps. Cool. Cheers. Let's check out the next one. Let's see. We got Akifim is done. Let's go on to Brandon Krutel. Here we go. Let's see. This is from B. Krutel. BK. There we go. Bad Scotch, good man. All right. Here we go. Sounds like an alibi.
A mist of sawdust filled the air, flying off your table saw. My young eyes fixed on you and the wonder of it all. Honest man, making stuff people use. End of the day, you'd wipe your brow and take a minute just for you. You'd pour something cheap into a glass with a little ice. Smelled like gasoline to me, but you took a sip and said, that's nice. That's nice. So on this black night, lit with the wink of a sliver moon, the words keep me company, but you left me way too soon. I want you to know I'm doing the best I can. Raise my glass to you tonight and toast with bad scotch for a good man. Bad scotch for a good man. All grown up, you'd sit with me, you'd listen to my plans. Share your wisdom, talking man to man. Gave you a fancy single malt, smooth as honey. You said spending more than $10, you're wasting your money. So on this black night lit with the wink of a sliver moon, your words keep me company, but you left me way too soon. And I want you to know I'm doing the best I can. I raise my glass to you tonight and toast with bad scotch for a good man. Bad scotch for a good man. No Glenn, Jack, or Johnny made friends with you. Just a big green plastic bottle, aged a year or two. No fancy packaging or fancy label. You just better be on sale if you want a seat at this table. So on this black night lit with the wink of a sliver moon, your words keep me company, but you've left me way too soon. I want you to know I'm doing the best I can. I raise my glass to you tonight and toast with bad scotch for a good man. 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 Bad scotch for a good man.
Awesome song, man. Very cool. We have a pretty awesome comment here from Mike Conway. He says, there's no bad scotch, just misunderstood scotch. So there you go. Awesome. I don't have a whole lot for this one. There's not a lot in the mix too, but yeah. So over one, the acoustics sound amazing. Great job. So you said bedroom recordings, 2 acoustic guitars, vocals, and bass. I've been fighting the sibilance roller coaster on the S's. They're just part of the song and the lyrics, but the chas are killing me and just keep poking out. I think I'm starting to get a handle on them. I had to resort to surgical Melodyne. It's the worst kind of Melodyne, and just in the sense that it's a pain. So I have mangled a few words. Word of the sibilance. Nice. Okay. So I don't hear a sibilance problem now from what's going on in this, and I think that maybe it's gone the other way where you might be hyper focused on making the vocal sound, I don't know, like a perfect vocal, or just really honing in on the things that are bugging you about it and then attacking those. Two things I'll say about that. So one, the vocal in the song feels very mid-range focus. So kind of similar to that other tune where it's like there's a big focus on the tone between 300, 600, and it feels a little bit, it kind of reminds me of like the sound of an NS10 or something like that. It's just very mid-range. It's all mid-range. And not that we need a lot more shine out of the vocal, but maybe if you're cutting all of that stuff, or if you're doing like a low pass filter or something like that, maybe try easing it up a little bit and seeing if you get some detail back out of the vocal. Now, if the recording is feeling like it's just way overly sibilant and this is the only way that you can listen to it, totally get that. On the very bottom of the vocal, I feel like a lot's been kind of shaved off there as well. Like, especially when you go to those low notes, I'm expecting to hear a little bit more low mid, like stuff happening below 220 and all of that. Not that you want to have a big boomy sound. You've got beautiful acoustics. You don't want to step on those. All of that, I totally get it. But it does feel a little bit thin underneath, just as it does on top. So it just kind of feels like you've got, low pass and high pass things going on that are really focusing the sound of the vocal on there. I don't hear an overcompressed vocal, but this is also a tone that comes from overcompressing vocals, and the vocal does feel very controlled and all that. I'm not saying you should do anything about it, but about the dynamic of the vocal. But yeah, overall, I think this sounds really, really cool. And if you've kind of fought with that vocal until you got it to the place where you could finally be happy with it, and this is what that is, and that's really cool. That might be how this performance is just going to sound. Option number 2 is if you have the microphone and you were the singer, you could try and do it again. And I would recommend watching one microphone vocal recording techniques on the site on Puremix. Fab DuPont does that video, and he does an incredible job of showing how to track vocals when you're hearing problems like S-ing and all of that, how to position the microphone in a way that you can deal with those S-ing problems at the source instead of having to pull out de-essers and go in with Melodyne and lower amplitude of S's and all of that stuff and consonants and everything. So great job overall. I think that this is really, really cool, and great song, and bad scotch, bad. So awesome. Very cool. Let's see. Frank says, I would suggest working with reverb, delay, and room. I was thinking that it's a little bit dry, and I thought about suggesting like some things like doing some like, lo-fi delay, tight delay stuff just underneath the vocal, not so that you hear the delay, but just to kind of give it space. But the acoustics, I really like the way that they feel, and your profile picture plus the sound of those acoustics makes me think of the ocean, and I can picture you singing this song, in like a beach house or something like that. And I think that there's something cool to it. So maybe not overcomplicating it is another way to go, but just do what the song is telling you. So very, very cool. Let's see who we got next here. All right, we got Mike Conway. Good to see you back, Mike. All right, this is Garbage Man. So here we go. From the tablets, he says, first cut on this tune, reference track is Your Mama Can't Help You. I can't pull that up or we'll get shut down. But I believe it's a great reference track. So, okay, it says this is an early mix. Here we go.
Time feeling alright. Picking up a street full of troubles, or picking up a street full of cares. Taking down the road away so they don't come back. from another time. Picking up a street full of troubles. Picking up a street full of cares. Taking down the roadway so they don't come back again. There goes a load of blues, bye-bye. There goes a load of blues, goodbye, goodbye. So many troubles all over the land. We're gonna need more garbage cans. Fill them up and send them all around. Just another job for the garbage man. Picking up a street full of troubles, or picking up a street full of cans. Taking down the roadway so they don't come back again.
Awesome job, Mike. Let's look into that ending real quick. I just heard something I want to make a note of. Just that the fade feels a little bit unnatural. So I want to hear a little bit more of the instrument decay right there and just have things die naturally. It feels like it just got kind of lopped off a little bit there. Great job on this. Very cool tune. And I have to say that the first verse resonated with me because I think pretty much every garbage day I'm chasing the guy down the street with my trash can, yelling for him to stop. And he's always trying to get away. But he didn't get away this morning. I got him. The song is very timely. So, all right, that's my garbage man story. So, I would on this particular mix, this is a really good example of finding the focus of the song, and to kind of go off of that a little bit. If this is a song that you worked on or you played on or something like that, if you have a rough mix, it's good to just kind of listen to it and forget about all the mixing stuff. And just listen to the song, listen to the music of it, and just try to look for what is the song about, both like lyrically, emotionally, and sonically, genre-wise. What's the underrooting thing, and what's the emotion? Michael Brower talks about this in his, I think in the first video in the Brower Eye series, and just trying to get to the root of like what's going on in it. So this is it's a guitar blues, feel of the song, and I feel like the guitars are in the genre. The guitars are one of the most important things in that. We'll talk about that in a second. The other thing is like what's going on with the vocal. It's is he pissed off at the garbage man? Is he the garbage man? What's the emotion that's going on? And trying to find the things that help to fit that in. The other thing to look at is what's the groove of the song. We've got like this blues sort of shuffle thing. Where it has the accents are coming on the snare, and we're doing like my compressor's probably, smashing that too. But the second hit in that snare pattern is going to be louder than the first hit. And part of that is the groove. So when you think about groove, sorry if this is, obvious and I'm just pontificating again, but the second hit being louder is a part of what makes the groove move and like what gives movement to the song. And looking at the snare drum for this, I feel like the snare has been compressed so much that I can tell he's hitting the snare harder because of the way that it's blooming and the stuff that's happening from it. But in the context of the mix, it feels like they're very much the same volume. So some of the groove is being removed from the pattern that the drummer's playing. It's important to remember that dynamics can completely change the groove of a song. you're dealing with attack time constants and release time constants and all of that, and you can completely change the actual performance of the drums just by adjusting those things. Obviously, you're not adjusting where the actual hit happens, but if you do things like smash the transient down when the drummer was using that as an accent to emphasize a beat inside of the pattern, you can end up sucking the groove out of the song and killing some of the danceability from it. This isn't completely over smashed, and I don't want you to think like this is, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is 10. That's not the case, but that's one of those things. It's like when you're mixing it, is this song moving the way that I want to? Where's the groove happening from the drummer? Am I allowing that stuff to happen, or am I killing it, with too much compression or stuff like that? So that's the drum compression thing. Back to the guitar's blues feel thing. To me, the guitars are a big part of what the sound of the song is, and they're emphasizing the attitude of what's going on in the lyric. And if you were to break this down to a couple elements, it could probably live. You probably wouldn't play the guitar this way if it was just guitar and vocal, but you could live a lot off of the guitar and the vocal. And the guitars feel a little bit quiet to me in the mix overall, like they weren't as important as, say, like the B3, which is much louder. I think that part of that is that the guitars are a little bit bright in the upper mids, which could be why you're keeping them where they're at in the balance, because if I'm just paying attention to the upper mids, things feel actually pretty balanced. But there's a lot more going on inside of that guitar part than just the attack or the quick strum on the accents of that guitar part. So I would just take a look at those guitars and not kill the brightness of it. And it sounds kind of like a Strat, like that upper mid sound's totally part of the sound. You don't want to kill it, but if that's poking out above everything else, then it's going to cause you to keep that guitar lower because you don't want it to become harsh, obviously. So one thing I would do for that, before reaching for a compressor, look at EQ stuff. And one, I've mentioned this too, but I love the API 550 because you can kind of like boost up a band and then quickly try out different frequency bands. There's obviously many EQs that do this, but that one happens to be one of my favorites for this, especially on guitar. But I would check out some low mid stuff, some stuff that's not in the range of those bright, the upper mids. Instead of subtracting the upper mids, try boosting up some other stuff around the guitar, the frequency range of it, and see if you can get some body added to it, instead of doing a subtractive job where you're pulling out those beautiful upper mids that sound really great from the Strat tones that you have. So hopefully that's useful. The vocal feels a little bit over compressed to me. It's getting some of that mid-range cloudy thing that happens from doing a little too much over compression. And other than that, I think it's awesome. Great song and great job. Very cool. I hope that that's useful. Sorry we can't listen to the reference live to check it out. So, okay, cool. Let's check out what we got next. I got Studio Jamon. Yes. All right. This is like opening a surprise box every week when I get a track from you. I'm pumped, as always. Here we go. Awesome. Thank you for submitting again. Very cool. Um, I want to pause for 1 second. Frank Hubner in the chat on the last song said he put on his Epiphone Casito and started jamming along. That's freaking awesome, guys. I love Mixed Tank Monday. All right. Great song again, as always, Studio Jaman. So, uh, the beginning of it is great, and I love how it goes from I don't know what the right phrase would be, but like this tradition or traditional feeling piece into the rock piece, and then as you go through the song, it foregoes like what would be traditional rock things to do, like a big drum kit, and the drum sounds still sound very familiar to the intro, and using like more traditional drums from that style. So that's super cool. You said that the beginning of this was recorded from a live powwow, and I feel like those elements are respected throughout the end of the song. It's not like it just opened up with this powwow feel and then went into a completely different song. You kept the vibe going through the whole thing, which I think is really cool. Um, there's one of the things that I was going back and forth with when I was listening was like, do those toms need to be bigger? Do they need more low end and more subs and all that? But then thinking about the authenticity of the intro, that's not what those drums sound like live. So it's kind of cool that they don't do that as they go through. But at one point, I was feeling like I really did want to hear almost like a rock kit underneath it with like a kick that was actually pushing along and had some bottom and some punch to it. It feels like it's lacking low end punch to me overall. But again, it's like, how do you maintain the traditional aspects while doing things like that? So tricky. I heard a drum kit come in around here, I think. And then I feel like I almost lose, like it sounds like a kick drum coming in there, but then I almost lose it. So I don't know if it's going on the whole time. If it is, and you can add some more low end punch there, I think it would help the groove push forward. The four on the floor thing feels cool. I think it would feel cool throughout the whole thing. That's more of an arrangement comment. But um, in the section from 3 minutes on, you have there's like four big tom hits that happen, and I think they go through the end, but it does like a giant 1, 2, 3, 4 on the big low toms. And I think like in the first half of this section, maybe the first 8 bars or the first 4 bars or whatever, those stay where they are. But then if you lifted those up as that portion of the song progresses, it would allow it to like keep elevating to the next plateau, if you will, part of it. So I think it would just help keep stair stepping it throughout the end of the song. So yeah, very cool. The only other thing, I hear like some really wide, there's a lot of stereo widening going on. I know you for your very wide mixes, and your, sort of aim at like almost making things feel Atmos and stereo and everything. I feel like things go pretty wide in this and they get pretty phasey, especially on some of those vocal effects toward the end. So I'd say, as usual, just, word of caution, watch out for that. Um, I forget if you're mixing on headphones or on speakers on this stuff, but some of that should feel unnatural to you. So that could be like a speaker placement thing. I think we've talked a little bit about that in the past, but just something to be aware of. If you have a way to sum down to mono too, just make sure things aren't disappearing if you're going to push them out that far. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. Um, yeah, the only other thing I can really think of is like thinking of your previous mixes that have more low end punch. I know you know how to do that, so if you're not doing it here, I'm guessing that that's a intentional thing. But that would be the only thing I noticed really was like could use more low end punch, more things like pushing the groove along. Hope that that's useful. Awesome. Okay. Very cool. Paul Martin has a cool comment. He says, I was trying to imagine how the song would be presented if it was live and if it would influence the mixing decisions, maybe with dynamics or more aggression toward the end. Sounds great, man. Yeah, totally. Um, Mike, you said on speakers sometimes, headphones on this. Cool. Um, I wonder if that's part of the low end thing, or let me know if you were like intentionally kind of not doing much low end on the bottom of it. Because it could be a headphone thing, especially if you're mixing on like Beats or something, but I doubt you're mixing on Beats. So cool. Thanks for listening, or thanks for submitting it. Okay, let's see here. Mike says it will be done live, so everybody watch out for that. I'd love to see that, actually. Love to see you do your music live. That'd be awesome. Okay, Paul Martin, you're up next. This is Spaces from Paul Martin.
What do you do in the middle of the night when she's playing on your mind? You accidentally blink, all you do is think, do you be cruel to be kind? You've gotta stop and search for all those spaces. Got to breathe in those wide open places. You tell me you feel a little time will heal, and you know I completely agree. A little distance works well, and time will surely tell if we should leave our thoughts at sea. To stop and search for all those spaces. You've got to breathe in those wide open places. You tell me you believe in me, you don't know what it means to me to live within my spaces. This is not all Bill-Lee, it's just the way I wanna be, to live within my places. You tell me you feel a little time will heal. You tell me you feel a little time will heal, and you know I completely agree. Little distance works well, but time will surely tell if we should leave our thoughts at sea. You've got to stop and search for all those spaces. Got to breathe in those wide open places. You tell me you believe in me, you don't know what it means to be, to live within my space. This is not off the bleed, it's just the way I wanna be, to live within my places. You've got to stop and search for all those spaces. You've got to breathe in those wide open places.
Awesome, Paul. Very cool. Dig the song. I keep forgetting to put this here, but you guys are live with me anyway, so you know I'm here. All right. Send. There we go. All right. Very cool. So a couple things on this one. Number one, just I think that there's some vocal notes that are a little bit out of the scale. They're a little avant-garde. So you guys have Melodyne Essential with your Puremix account, so make sure you're taking advantage of that. And there might be just one or two notes to kind of put into place. The singer's not overly pitchy to me, so it's not like it needs a big vocal tune job. Just on some of those runs, there's a couple notes that aren't quite inside of the scale. Other than that, I want to go back to my previous comment with the other song, which is about finding the root of the song and what's important and what needs to be brought out and all of that. There's maybe I'm just thinking about this a lot lately, but it's definitely something that I think is useful when we stop thinking of mixing as all of these technical all the technical stuff that we have to do. Obviously, we have to get those tricks under our belts and have a database of things to do when we're like, this guitar sounds muddy. I need this EQ to go at this certain frequency range, and I'm going to bring it down by this much at this bandwidth, blah, 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 blah. All of the sciencey technical nerd stuff, right? But it's important to just keep musicality at the forefront of everything and just think about what is the song, what's important about the song, all the same stuff that I've already said on this stream. The vocal, the story, what's the emotion, what elements of the mix help me enhance those things, and then obviously incorporating the artist's vision into that. So in this one, you say, as per usual, going for more of a retro kind of vibe. As this is one of my songs, I'm kind of mixing as I go rather than opening up a bunch of stems. I love that. You're making decisions as you go, which is one of the most important parts about our entire process. Just having intention and making decisions and committing to them. So that's awesome. At this point, I'd say the mix is about 70% there, and the lead backing vocals need to be redone. Oh, okay. So you're going to redo the vocals anyway. Not sure if I'm going to attempt some Graham Nash style harmonies or have female vocals to do a line above and below in the chorus. There's a big dynamic tempo change, which I want to transition in and out of as seamlessly as possible, both musically and sonically. I did feel that. I went back and played it again to try to understand what was going on there. That might need a little bit more editing and just consideration about what you want to actually have happen there. So yeah, there we go. So I didn't want to crush the dynamics when the song pushes after the halfway mark, but still retain the energy. I think you're doing a good job there. If there's any advice mixing wise to increase the intimacy of the softer parts and the energy of the heavier parts, that would be awesome. Yeah, so I think it goes down to put on your arranger hat while you're doing the mix. Sorry about that. Put on your arranger hat and let go of your mixer hat as you're kind of working through these things and think about the song. It's one of your songs, so nobody knows this better than you do about what is important about the song, right? One of the things that jumps out to me, and the reason I'm going off about this so much, the guitars are, the mix tells me that the guitars are the most important thing in the mix. They're the loudest thing, they're the most upfront thing, and they're what's demanding my attention at all times during the song. I think that the focus is the vocal in the song. I, probably feel that way the majority of the time, but especially in something like this, where you're going for this retro vibe. You mentioned Graham Nash, like there's a singer-songwriter thing. The vocal's important. We need to hear it at all times. And, those guitars are almost acting like when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody in a restaurant and the music's too loud above you and you can't hear the conversation that's happening. It's like, guitar, you're awesome. You have a wah thing going on. It's really, really cool. Can you keep it down for a minute? I'm trying to hear what the story is in the song. So that's just one thing to kind of consider as you're going through. I lost the kick drum after the time break shift that you're doing in there. It does feel a little jarring right now. The whole like the time change. Maybe look at it again if you want it to feel like a smooth, seamless transition. If not, I would do something that's more obvious that it's like I'm trying to make you kind of feel the jarringness of it. The rack tom stuck out to me around 220. That was the only other note that I really had on this. And then again, spatial widening. Watch out for going too wide on it if you have it going on there. It can make you feel like you're swimming, and I feel a little bit of that on this one. So yeah, good luck with the rest of the mix. You said you're about 70% of the way there. Good luck on the final 30%. And I'm going to go off on one more tangent here. And I've been thinking about the ways that I approach mixes, and I kind of have almost like 3 stages to it. There's the first one where it's all just about like session prep. And I don't mean just the nerdy stuff of like, I'm going to color these tracks and I'm going to clean up the silence and put in the markers and all of that stuff. It's more about while I'm doing that stuff, I have the rough playing down, but after I've got the session set up and everything kind of where I need it to be so it's familiar, I listen to the rough again, and I just found this neat feature. I don't think you guys will see it with the stream, but if I hit like F11, it's like expose or something like that. It takes all of the windows and just moves them off of the screen. And I have a black background on my computer, so it just is black, when I'm looking in front of me. It's the same effect as like turning off the TV screen, which I do a lot. But just getting all that stuff out of the way and just listening to the song and finding the answers to all those questions. What's the emotion? What's important about this song? What are the main elements that if I stripped everything else out, I could not live without, like this rhythm guitar, this piano, or this vocal. Just finding out what's important, figuring out the emotion of the song, and then figuring out as you're going through and making all of your decisions, how do you emphasize that, right? Phase two for me after session prep is usually like going through each track and almost treating it like tracking, where it's like, is there something else to do with the sound? Is there something I can do to it to make it further support what I discovered when I was doing that listen through on the rough and asking myself all those questions? And then from there, once I've kind of got a balance going, then it becomes all about performance, where it's like, I'm going to do some fun effects and all of that, but I'm going to automate things and make sure that like the right things are speaking in the right sections of the song and all of that. So having I'm very process oriented as a person and all that, and that might be overthinking, mixing on the whole, but that's kind of what I've been doing that's been helping me out lately. And it's also kind of taking the part of the technical side, which is what I'm doing when I'm kind of going through each track and seeing if there's something to enhance or whatever, but still keeping in mind the emotion. It's taking that and it's separating it from the performance aspect and really trying to make the song sing. So I thought I'd add that today, but okay, great. Let's see. Lots of great comments, lots of great suggestions from people in the chat here too. So definitely check those out. Thank you, chat room, for putting in your comments and everything. This is a community effort here. And please go drop your comments on the individual tracks too on Mixtank. All right, let's hit our next one. I'm gonna have to start moving faster. I'm talking too much. Joe Rainey. Let's get to it. Okay, this is Joe Rainey. I don't remember which song you put up there. We're gonna go with this. Oh yeah, it's definitely this one. War Colossus. Awesome. Here we go. Ending on a beastly scale. I love it. That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so Joe, you said the name of this is War Colossus, and it's for a video game. Composed it myself too. The first mix I've done with my SSL Sigma and Fusion hardware. Awesome, man. Congrats on getting that stuff. Definitely hear the SSL sound in there. It's nice and tight and punchy on the bottom and all that. So very cool. Sounds like you're getting your SSL sound out of your gear from what I just heard. This is video game to the max. I kind of want to go over to my friend Brian's house and play his. He's got a Street Fighter 2 arcade game in a cabinet, which is awesome. And I think I'm gonna go do that now. So I'll see you guys. All right. So a couple things on this. The guitars, the main power riff guitars that are going on in the back, just kind of holding out those chords and laying down the harmonic structure. They're very distant. They sound like they're verbed out and there's a lot of reverb on them, and they're a bit dark. And some of that is just in relation to where are the transients of the drums hitting, and then obviously the synth lines that you have are very loud. So you have those right on top of the mix, which is cool. They're a little too above everything, in my opinion. If you're monitoring speakers or headphones, just make sure that you're not monitoring too loud, because as you increase the volume, the room gets more involved, and also just the overall volume of things makes like your ears kind of compress things, and it's really easy to kind of throw things too loud in the mix when you're mixing at a super loud volume. So watch out for that. The I would just look for balances, and I've talked before on thinking about balance in terms of depth. So when something is really, really loud, it's out in front here, and right now, like those guitars are kind of sitting back here for me. So I would see what you can do to just kind of like bring in the depth of the mix a little bit more, and try to make everybody feel like they're a part of the same a part of the same mix. Also, with those mono sources, this is totally a style thing. This is for a video game, especially in 8-bit video games. There wasn't anything that you could do like modulation or reverb or delay effects to make things kind of like blend into the mix and mold and all that. At first, I would work on the balances between them, and you can still keep those things loud, but maybe pull them back a little bit. And I also know like part of the retro video game thing is that things weren't balanced at all, and they were super loud like that. So in that case, if that's the intent, then I think that you're nailing it, and that's awesome that that's your intent and you went for it. I'm not sure how helpful that advice is, but it might be cool, since you might have the liberty to do so. You could do some more things to make those mono sources, those leads, the synths and the lead guitar and all of that blend a little bit more into the mix. So short delays, reverbs, even things like a brigade chorus or stuff like that. Any of those Dimension D kind of emulation things are really, really useful for stuff like that. Microshift, all of that could potentially help out, but obviously you're trying to be true to a style. So, okay, let's see. Field Grep, you ask, is it possible to do my submission today since I'm here? Yes, just let me know. Brian says I can't come over to play his arcade game, which kind of makes me mad. We'll talk about that in the car. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Karen Bassett. She says elements need to be a better blend together. Everything sounds different, needs more cohesion. Agree. So that's, yeah, some of the things I was talking about. Isomatic says they love the Mega Man vibes. Me too. Very cool. Karen, I got really excited when I said your name because I stumbled across a YouTube video. Everybody needs to go search YouTube and watch Karen's videos. She has some covers that she did where she plays all the instruments on there, and they're freaking awesome. I think they're from years ago. But I went down a little YouTube rabbit hole and I watched a bunch of your videos, Karen. So great job on those. Cool. All right, let's move on to our next tune. And let me go over to my notes. This is going to be from Joseph Music. Let's see, we got You Flower is the name of the song. Here we go. It's the saddest key of all the songs. Great track, Joseph. That's, yeah, very awesome. It's like a whole range of emotions in that one. I absolutely loved it. Very cool. Number one, this is I'm a broken record on these things. I'm sorry. I feel a lot of stereo widening happening, and it's a lot like if we look at the end here where we have this like reverse thing going on. We're going to talk about that guitar tone in a second because it was freaking awesome. So there's a lot of positive stuff here. But anyway, I want to play this reverse effect thing again to try and draw attention to this. That guitar tone is so good, the one that's happening over on the left. But our stereo sound of the reverse guitars and everything, that is actually, I pulled up decibel, and at some point I'll integrate that into the setup so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But the correlation meter is kind of dipping negative, and when I throw my monitors into mono, I'm losing a lot of the effect of the reverse guitar. So definitely check your stuff in mono, especially if you're using any kind of stereo widening tricks. That could be MS delay tricks, whatever it happens to be. Just watch out for overdoing that stuff. It can just distract. It's again about suspending disbelief. We don't want to think that we're listening to a recording of a song. We just want the emotion to like take us over, especially as you've composed this. It's a beautiful piece. That kind of stuff is distracting to me. And I get that we want it to feel immersive. There's a number of ways to do that without having to go way outside of the speakers. So I'm always on a soapbox about that, and I'm sorry guys, but it's something that like really pulls me out, and it's just a very like distracting thing to me. So yeah, check out for that, or just watch out for that kind of stuff. I love the sound design though, and that part is amazing. Just want to hear it more in phase is all. I think it's great. And again, that guitar tone, it's so good and beautiful playing. Great job on this. The whole thing, it's really well made. There was a comment in the chat that I agree with. I was going to say as well, just watch out for the timing on the piano. It's not that it needs to be perfectly on the grid or anything like that. There needs to be some regular feel to it, but there were some things that felt a little bit out of groove in spots. So I would maybe just do one pass, looking over, not like, replay it if you want to, but do a pass. Maybe it's just an editing pass and it's just as easy as nudging a few things around here and there or whatever inside of that performance. The performance feels like it has a ton of emotion into it, so it's I don't know that I'd lose the performance. I would just say, like, go look at it one more time and see if you can do a little bit of editing to make things feel like they're all in the pocket there. I think it's great. Let's see, just want to see. Karen says, since there's no vocal, should the guitar be in the middle? Depends on how it tells the story, in my opinion. James says piano kind of stepped over the guitar in the intro. It's also kind of neat that the guitar comes to life in the end of the song too. That's all coming down to like arranger's intention and composer's intention there. Great job. Very cool. Palisades, I see you. You're bouncing out your track now. Awesome, man. Go for it. I don't know how much time is left, but I didn't want to wreck your ears and speakers with a brick wall of loudness. It's happened before. Not by you. Awesome. So, Americ had a cool idea that the piano could have some delay and reverb on it that would help add to the etherealism of it. Daniel says the guitar is very Buckley. That's probably why this is like really resonating with me a lot. I love Jeff Buckley. Phantom, you asked if there will be a replay of this live. This video will live up on YouTube and I believe also on the Mixed Tank. I think that we have a live stream page for Mixed Tank. There's been some transition with the new version of the site, but nonetheless, it will be on our Puremix channel. You can find this replay later. Okay. Felgrep, just let me know your username and the name of the song, and we'll try to get to it before you get out of here. We got about 40 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking, and we're going to do the next song. All right. Next one comes from... That was a really cool song. All right. Brand New Me. I think I typed that wrong. Let's see. Brand New Me from Keith Warman. Here we go.
Don't you worry about me. I'll be just fine. You wait and see. I'm gonna get up and wipe the tears. I'm gonna find a brand new me. Yes, I will, yeah. I'm gonna try, and forget all the things that I regret, yeah. I'm gonna keep on, can't you see, until I find forget the past. I'm gonna keep on, can't you see, until I find a brand new me. Yes, I will. Oh, oh, oh. until I find a brand new me. Yeah. So keep on, can't you see? Yeah. Until I find a brand new me. Yeah, yeah. A brand new me.
Awesome. Man, that vocal performance is killer. Cool song too. Yeah, the whole thing's very, very cool. I love what you have going on at the beginning of the song. I want to listen to that intro again going into the first full band section. So we'll just start it here and I'll try and make this quick so I can get to everybody's song. But here we go.
A brand new me. Yes, I will. Yeah. I'm gonna try.
So we're going to talk about the contrast between the guitar sound and the lead vocal, and then when the band comes in here, because there's a lot of awesome stuff that's happening. First thing, listen to the decay of this guitar before going into the new section. If it's possible, I'd like to hear that guitar sustain a little bit longer and not just have the reverb effect draw it out. It feels like it cuts off in a little bit of a non-musical way and just a time for the guitar to stop now kind of way, instead of it being like, I'm going to slowly fade out over this bar or over this half note or whatever that fade might be. But try to make that more of a musical subdivision for a smoother transition. Unless you want it to not be smooth, in which case maybe there's something more abrupt and more intentional to do there. But either way, yeah, I love the beginning of this. I love the limited bandwidth sounding guitar. The tone that you have there is really cool. And I wonder if it would be cool to do something like that with the vocal, where the whole thing sounds like it's got this limited bandwidth deal, you know, not necessarily going as far as the AM radio thing, but maybe a little bit. And then when the whole band comes in, it just opens up to this big explosion thing. The only thing working against you is you've got 44 seconds of the song before the whole band opens up full bandwidth, so that could be a little bit tricky. But yeah, this is super cool. Karen says vocal automation on the vocal. I thought that could help too, just to keep it from feeling too flat. Adding a little bit of feeling into it. I just saw that you guys have a comment about stereo widening, so we're going to talk about that in a second. I don't hear it on this track. That's from a previous comment that I made. Okay, so on verse 2, where you come down a little bit, you've got the hat, and then you've got the snare and the kick kind of keeping a little pattern going there. I wonder if they're not needed in that section to just let it come down and be about the guitar and the vocal and get the distraction away from those two things. Thinking again about what's important and what enhances those two things. The hat is keeping the groove going. The snare and drums kind of inserting themselves here and there, or the snare and the kick inserting themselves here and there might be more of a distraction. That's an arrangement thing for you to figure out. The hat sound does sound disconnected from the rest of the kit to me. It's very bright and it's close to me, whereas the kick and the snare are recessed back in the mix. So thinking front to back on that, it's like, you know, if he had to reach like Mr. Fantastic and go out with his arm to hit the hat right out in front, but he's playing the kick and the snare way back here on stage. So maybe watch out for that. The guitar solo is amazing. I want to hear more of it. Bring it up. At 2:45, I felt like the rhythm guitars take over the vocal a little bit. And while it's kind of a cool effect in the sense that like sounds like everything's getting so loud and the vocal's getting more intense and it's like harder for him to get above everything, and that's also pushing like the urgency of the vocal, which is really good. It might be that they get a little too loud there, so I don't know. It might be just be something to look at, but if you're being intentional about it, awesome. The contrast sounding guitar from the intro, where it's limited bandwidth, that comes out in those down choruses, and I wonder if that should be more full bandwidth now that we've gotten the rest of the band in, and letting that be a thing from the intro. Kind of an arrangement decision there, but you're also using sonics to enhance the arrangement and the decision to strip things down and all of that. So making things feel different from section to section provides contrast and keeps the momentum of the song going and keeps the listener engaged. So that could be one thing that you could do to do that. One other thing on the cymbals, in the drum kit, there's a lot of stuff just happening on top, and I wonder if a low pass filter wouldn't help add some focus back to the meat of the song, back to the vocal, to the guitars, and all of that. I don't mean low passing all the way down to like 10 kilohertz or something like that, but maybe just a very gentle slope low pass filter on the top of the kit might help to just take away a little bit of the distracting sparkly stuff on top. Or if you're boosting a lot of top end, you could just try bringing that down a little bit. But sometimes just shaving off some of the top of that stuff just makes all the other stuff really pop out of the mix. So could be something to play with there. Thank you so much for submitting, Keith. That's super cool. And we'll be back here in 2 weeks with another Mix Tank Live, and I'd love to hear another version of it if you go further. So let me know. We got Little Pock in the chat. What's up, Little Pock? It's going well, my friend. Let's see. So the question up above, Karen said, how are you able to hear that, Mark? What tips do you, what tips, something about stereo widening? Let me go up to Karen's comment. So how are you able to hear that, Mark? What tips do you have on this? I'm not sure what you meant to type there, but how I hear the stereo widening stuff. So monitor placement's everything for sure. One other thing that helps on the monitor placement discussion, my monitor it's a TV that's mounted to a wall. And the reason for that, besides like it being a nice big screen and all of that, I'm sitting probably like 3-4 feet away from it. But the main reason for it is because that gets it behind my speakers, meaning like it's not on the same plane as the woofers. It's not in between the speakers. And it's a fun experiment to try at home. Like if you have a monitor between your speakers or even in front of them or even behind them a little bit on your desk, try listening to something and maybe have a friend do this for you. Like put the monitor in there and then take it out and all that. And listen to what happens when you get that monitor either behind the speakers or away from the speakers altogether. You start getting like a really focused center image. And that is the kind of thing that like helps you hear depth better. The stereo widening thing, sometimes like having that monitor there can cause some phase distortion and all that. So you start not hearing, pushing things as wide, and then you end up going wider. There's all kinds of problems that can happen from that. So that's one thing to check out among like a billion others or whatever. The other one is working in a treated room. You can see I've got a lot of deadening on this room, like on this wall and the one parallel to it and all of that. I've got ceiling clouds and all that, so I'm cutting down on reflections, which allows me to really focus on what's coming out of the speakers more than how the room's impacting me on all that. I like a lot of absorption for that reason, just to kind of like narrow it down to that. But you start picking up on those things as you can hear them more. So if you are finding that you're over widening things, when you listen on other playback systems, you also have to be able to hear it. But it could be a monitor thing. It could be, room reflections and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that helps. What tips me off? You said, what tips me off on the stereo widening thing? It's like a feeling of, the best way to do this would be take a mono track and then make a duplicate of that track, pan them hard left and right, and flip one out of phase. That's the sound to me. It's like an out of phase sound, or like when you have overhead mics on a drum kit that are out of phase from each other, and you end up feeling like you have this really wide washy thing, like you're kind of it's like almost an underwater kind of feeling. But I would say the best way to like get used to that sound is to do something like duplicating a track, flipping the phase, panning it hard left and right, and that's like an extreme version of what stereo widening is kind of doing. They're doing phase tricks like that to make it feel like it goes outside of the speakers. A little bit of that stuff is cool, and it's not to say I never use it. But when you go too far, it starts feeling like an out of phase signal to me. So like a vocal would be cool to check that out with. A guitar, if you duplicated like a mono guitar, hard left, hard right, flip one out of phase. That's the extreme version of that. And the other way would just be like take a mix, put a stereo widening plugin on it, and crank it all the way up, like just dime it and go all the way on it, and listen to like what that sound is like, and extrapolate the things that you don't like about it or that you do like about it. And that's one of those things that just kind of like imprints it into your auditory memory. So hopefully that helps. All right. Fail grip, don't be scared. It's gonna be awesome. Let's see. James says, damn, that's a tease when it drops out like that on the song that we just listened to. Very cool. All right, thanks for submitting that, Keith. Let's move on to our next song here. We got Quark, the beginning. And tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much, guys, because I got to get through these tunes. All right, here we go. Yeah, throw them. Throw the drumsticks. That's awesome. Nice. I think you hit the mic though. No, you didn't hit a mic. That's awesome. Okay, very cool. So, a couple things on this one. First, very fun song to listen to. It's a cool instrumental feel. You said over in the comments, "Hi all, an instrumental rock song. If you can tell me how it sounds, is it well balanced? Do you find important mistakes? Just want some feedback to know if I'm doing a good job." You're doing a good job, Quark. Very good job. It's awesome. Karen had a comment that a couple guitar notes got choked in those trills and pull-offs. That would be the only important mistakes that I would note too, as far as like musicality goes. And I would throw the drumsticks a little bit harder at the end. But other than that, we got a couple mixed things to go over here. So The intro of the song is a completely different sonic picture than the second half of the song to me. And a lot of that is attributed to the sub synth bass. So let's take a listen to this section here. Up to here, I think you're killing it. I like Sonic Science Lab's comment in here too about like the guitars are a little bit bright. It's bringing up. So he says, for now, the guitar feels like it's a bit too present, and that comes out some non-musical stuff. So I think he just means like all of that enhancement on the top end is bringing up some non-musical things like finger moves and pick scrapes and stuff like that in the guitar that like we don't necessarily, we want to hear some of it or it doesn't feel real, but it's being enhanced to the point that it feels a little bit unnatural. I would agree with that comment. They just feel a little bit too bright. But it's not insanely bright. So that's a thing. The sub bass feels really good to me. It's got a nice chunk on the bottom of it. Like there's good sub information and everything. And one of the things that does is sets up the stage for where the bottom end of the mix is for the rest of the song, right? So now you've shown us what sub sounds like, and we like it. So you can't take it away from us. But then when we get to the next part of our song, listen to what happens from the sub. So the instrument delivering the most sub information at this point is the kick drum, which also has a lot of point on it, so we're not hearing the sub quite as much. And then the bass is more of a mid-range focus, which I love the tone of the bass. Feels like it's maybe a little bit overcompressed, and taking a little too much of the dynamic out of the bass guitar, but overall the tone's very nice. It's just that we don't have this big sub low end support anymore, so now our mix feels a little bit light coming out of that, massive thing in the beginning. So the guitars throughout the rest of the song, the electric guitars, the lead and everything, they feel a little bit pokey in the upper mid range to me, but like they also have some cloud going on in the lower mids, like 400, 500 kind of stuff. For that kind of stuff, I love the Pro Q3. You can solo up a band, you can just kind of scan around and be like, oh, there's the cloud, and then you can decide, what you want to do about it. So I'd maybe look at that. As far as like an advice about the sub synth versus the next part of the song, either keep the sub synth going at a low level, and have it be the bottom end support and let that bass guitar that's playing the, kind of stuff a little bit in the upper range, let that be the mid range focus of the bass and let the sub carry the bottom of it. Or potentially bring the sub bass down in the beginning, add clarity to the guitars, like which would add clarity to the guitars, such as like Sonic Science Lab is suggesting there too. Like if you opened up the bass a little bit, the guitars would be a little bit more of the focus. So that could be a useful thing in the beginning. You could also do a high pass on that sub bass and just take out some of the ultra low stuff. But I would just focus on cleaning up the transition from part one of the song to part two and making those feel like they're more of a natural thing. The kick drum has a lot of snap on it. It's poking through to me. The balance is good. I think it's just got a little bit of sort of unnatural separation from the rest of the kit there. It's also reminiscent of the style, so you have to decide how far you want to take that. Other than that, I would just say like one of the other things that I like to do in a mix, especially if I'm feeling lost, is I'll just focus on one section of the song at a time, and as I move to the next section, I'll work on the transition between those two sections. So whether that's like an intro into a verse to pre-chorus, pre-chorus, chorus, all of that kind of stuff. If I ever start feeling lost, I'll be like, well, let's just go section by section and see what happens. Like, how's this section feeling overall? Do I hear all of the elements that are supposed to be in there? How's the transition to the next one? Is it a good transition? Am I getting more excitement if I'm supposed to? All of those things. So just asking yourself some questions as you move from part to part, especially when you have something that's so different from intro to the next section of the song. Hope that helps. Let's see. Karen says the drummer's solid. The intro is perfection. I agree. That intro sounds really, really great. You killed it on that. That's from James Peters. Awesome. All right, let's move on to our next song here. Thanks for submitting that, Cork. Very cool listen. Nick Busey, When the World is Dark. I see your track, Palisades. We can't listen to it yet, but we're going to get there. Here we go.
I'm on the ground. I'm looking for hope. I'm watching the stars become black holes. I'm in a corner of a foreign world. Nobody knows me, nobody talks. You come to me when everything is gray and paint for me a sunny day. You guide me through the night and then your light shows me the way to see the dawn again. When the world is dark, I find brightness in your eyes. When the world is cold, I find warmness in your smile. A little place where you go when you need shelter from the storm. When the world is dark, I know you are by my side. I'm on the road with nowhere to go. Rain in my eyes, wind in my soul. I still run in circles, chasing every chance I lost. But I never look back, I'm ready for more. You come to me when everything is gray and paint for me a sunny day. You guide me when everything is gray and paint for me a sunny day. You guide me through the night and then your light shows me the way to see the dawn again. When the world is dark, I find brightness in your eyes. When the world is cold, I find warmness in your smile. A little place where you go when you need shelter from the storm. When the world is dark, I know you are by my side.
Awesome, Nick. What a great song. Okay, so you said, "Hi everyone, I hope you're doing great. I haven't worked on this track for a while, but I tried to do everything I was told last time around, focusing mostly on balancing the low end, adding liveliness to the second part of the song, and making the vocals more interesting. I quite like the result, but I'm dying to know your opinion. Also because I recently moved to another house and my home studio sounds totally different now. My sympathy. All the best, Nick. Yeah, Nick, that is such a hard thing to get used to, and it's something I dread every time that I have to do to go mix in a different room, and especially if I have to move my studio. Yeah, it's a nightmare. So yeah, good luck getting used to it. You just listen to a lot of music, you'll be fine. But anyway, going back on the song here. This has a lot of Will Knox vibes to me. Will Knox, if you're not familiar, we've done quite a bit of content with Will on Puremix, and you should definitely check out. There's some videos of Fab mixing Will Knox. He has a record called, I know it has the Acrobat in it. It's such a good record, and it's one of my favorite things that Fab's done. Definitely go watch that one. And one of the things that I like about that record in particular is it has these big drum hits that have a lot of sub information, but the balance on them so perfect. And I remember when I first started working with Puremix, when we would travel and do like a trade show or something, and Fab would test out a system to kind of figure out what was going on in like a room he didn't know, or even on a trade show floor to figure out what subs are doing and all that. He would listen to one of those songs. I'll try and look it up while I'm talking here. It's useful to know. And he would be able to dial in the subs from it because of the balance on it. And I wound up getting really used to that song myself, and it was very useful. So I'll try and find it now. But it's definitely a good one to reference. And it's a good thing in general to just have references to figure out the bottom. So sorry, it's on the Matador, and the Acrobat is the name of the record, and Immigrant Hands is the name of the song. I'll put that in the YouTube chat for everybody here because it's a good one to check out, and I think this will be very useful for you. There you go. There's a Spotify link. If you hate Spotify, I understand your hatred. And hate is a strong word, but sometimes that's the feeling for Spotify. Oops, that's the wrong link. Hold on. All right. Here is a link with an aggregator so you can listen to if you feel so ethically inclined to something else. Okay. I wrote a comment on there because I couldn't help it at 3:48. I love that synth and guitar sound. This is a very cool song. Things get a little bit clamped to me when everything comes in. So going back here, let's just listen to it. Listen to the power in the vocal in the intro, and then once everything comes in, listen to where it's sitting after that. So here we go.
Nobody knows me, nobody talks. You come to me when everything is grey and paint for me a sunny day. You guide me through the I'm in a corner of a foreign world. You guide me through the night.
So the vocal feels just a little bit more compressed to me, and it starts to get a little bit muffled and clamped down, and just kind of like the tone gets a little bit choked as it does when you have overcompression on a vocal. So I would take a look at how much you're compressing the vocal, and then possibly work on, if you decide that it is too compressed for you, maybe work with parallel compression instead of doing insert compression on this, to just try to preserve some of the dynamics and the natural feel of it, but still get all of the lift that you naturally get from compression and all of that stuff that you might be looking for to bring the vocal close and more intimate to you. That's a useful thing for the vocal. The bottom end does feel a little bit too big on those big drum hits. Again, just check out that Will Knox tune. When they hit, everything feels like it gets choked down a little bit. Not so much as like the previous song where I mentioned the same thing, but you kind of hear the compression kick in. And again, just listen to the other instruments in the mix when those big drum hits happen. So it's very easy to get wrapped up in like, I'm trying to make this drum hit sound really big and you know, as meaty as I can, and have all that impact and the emotion that comes from that. And you end up focusing on it. You're listening to the bottom end of that thing, and you're not hearing the guitars and the vocals and everything else kind of do this like little flutter thing that's happening from stereo bus compression or from whatever else might be happening down the line. The percussion feels a little bit bright and like it's sticking out to me. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you listen to like old Timberland stuff, as I just went through on a recent mix, sometimes that's the move. And I just went through a recent song where the percussion was so important in the song, and louder, 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 turn up the percussion more, turn up the percussion more. And it was so on top of it. And then we had a conversation about it, and we listened to some references that they had, kind of been listening to. And the producer was listening to a ton of Timberland, and it was like, that's where the percussion lives. That's where it's supposed to live. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I just noticed that it's bright. It's brighter than the rest of the mix, and it's definitely on top of the mix. 227, there's a vocal noise that I heard, I think it's being brought out by compression. It's just like a mouth noise or something like that. As if you play with the compression, it may not be a problem, but that happened at 2 minutes and 27 seconds. The other thing I would say, just make sure each section lifts up. So try to add some dynamics to the song, either through arrangement, and if you're past that point already, you could try doing things like individual automation on the tracks as you go from section to section, just breathing some life into it with faders. And then another trick that you can never discredit is the slippery fader. So that's the master fader, just going from section to section. You could start the song off down a dB and then like lift up to a half on the pre-chorus, lift up to, back to unity at the chorus, and come back down on a verse, just whatever actually matches the song. But play around with adding a little bit of dynamic so that we just feel like by the end of it, we're not in the same place that we were at the beginning of the song. Like we've elevated and we've gone somewhere. As all of your instrumentation and your arrangement has just gotten so epic. We want that to feel like a big moment at the end of the song too. So support all of the beautiful arrangement that you've done with the dynamics of the mix. Other than that, the end, the BGVs sound awesome, and I wanted to hear more of them, but it's a personal opinion thing, so do as you will. But yeah, thank you so much for submitting this, Nick. That was a great song. Let's go on to our next one, SDR Music. So I got 3 more here, and yes, Palisades, I got your mix. So let's see, this is SDR Music. There we go, Focus Instrumental, here we go. Lots of instrumentals today, I love it. Cool. Awesome. Thank you for submitting STR. So I just want to read the comments over here. This is marked as an early mix. This is an instrumental of a song that'll have a vocal because it says, kind of a dream pop track a friend and I are producing. This is an early mix after we track some extra parts and a scratch vocal, muted for the time being. Curious what anyone's thoughts on the mix so far, as some early automation has been done. But of course, anything to make the choruses hit would be great. Thanks. Okay, so gonna make a boldish statement here that I can't give you mix advice on this track without hearing the vocal. And it's just some stuff that I said earlier, which is what is the important part of the song? What's the song about? What's the vocal saying? How important is the vocal to the song? Without, and I guess you could say this like if you said I left out the main synth or any other major element of the song. It's hard to comment on the relationship of certain things without all of the pieces to the puzzle. Specifically, what is the emotion? What is the song about? Vocals are so important to me, and storytelling and all of that. This is a pop track, so I feel comfortable saying that. If this was like something from Studio Jaman, where a lot of it ends up being instrumental, and the vocals are more chants, and they're more like vocalizations of emotions. Actually, I still need to hear those. I still definitely need to hear those. So I guess we need the vocal. It's the big thing. But to give you some feedback on where I think you're at, I think that this is a really cool track, and I love a lot of the stuff that's happening here. Yeah, like some of the stuff about the drums. Sonic Science Lab says, pay attention to the drums. Their presence as it's spread out is a bit distracting. Do you know, he asked, do you know why? Then I think you might want to have them a little more energetic. Okay, I'm going to skip that. So I like the like delay graininess that you have on the kick that's happening on the sides. I think that's very creative and good sound design and pretty cool. How loud it should be is going to depend on that vocal to me. That'll tell whether or not it's distracting. But the sound designs are very cool. Now, as the song goes on and you get the bigger low end in the kick, I do feel like that's being spread out a bit, and that doesn't feel focused. Another thing about the phase stuff that I'm constantly going on about, and to answer your question, Kristen, it feels, think about like the John Paterno told me this one time, it's not mine, but it like perfectly illustrates it for me. Think about the focus ring on a camera. As you draw things into focus, they feel tight and the blurriness goes away, and you have like distinct outlines of each image in the picture, and you can see depth and all of that stuff. Widening plugins kind of are like taking the focus ring and throwing it out of focus. I know Brian in the chat knows what I'm talking about. When you throw that focus ring out and everything kind of goes blurry and fuzzy, and it doesn't feel like tight and punchy or defined, that's usually the effect that I get from those. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. For example, if you look over at my Prophet, it's blurry right now, and that provides depth, right? Like that gives depth of field in my image. Or even like those back panels, like they're not in focus so that I can be in focus, and contrast is an important thing. And I think that like drawing references from the visual world, except for camera gear, don't draw any references from camera gear. It's the worst stuff on earth. But other than that, I think like there's a lot of really good references to be drawn that apply to music and all that as well. So when he's talking about the phasiness of the drums or like the spread on them, just make sure that things are in focus. If you want a tight punch kick drum, mono, keep it mono and make it big. And then you can do other things to add space to it and all of that. I hope that helps. He said some early automation's been done. I would call that production automation. I don't know that it's mix automation. I don't know if you're there yet, but on the production side, the only comment I have is the piano loop, the sample that's being used. It might be interesting for you to mess with that a little bit more, like as the song goes on, maybe pick a section 3/4 of the way through or something where you can flip the sample and do something new and interesting with it, or in the outro do something new with it, just to make sure that it's not getting stale for the listener. And again, the vocal, it's possible that having the vocal and the background vocals, whatever vocal production you do, would completely draw away from any monotony that might be going on with that piano loop. So it might be totally fine. Need all the pieces to figure it out. But as you've noted, it's an early mix. So good luck with the rest of the production. Thank you for submitting it, and I hope that that's useful to some degree. Awesome. Okay. Carlos, sorry if I missed your song. We'll try and get to it here. Let me just write it down. So I got 3 left. We'll get Carlos, Rick. It'll be that last one. Okay, so next one is Tales of Woe from Gord. Awesome. Gord, thank you for submitting. Excited to see what you got here. That's not Gord. Hold on, let's see. Here we go. Tales of Woe, version 5. He says, I'm having problems improving the drums and vocals on this. I seem to be going around in circles. Thanks. It sounds like a tale of woe. Wah, wah, ba-dum-bum. Okay, here we go.
I've been reading some tales of woe, girl. I've been feeling some I don't know, girl. You've been crying, may not be like my dreams. Saw him in my crystal ball, then heard his voice and he was calling. I've been hoping, may not be like it seems.
I'm gonna pause here. I want to point something out, Gord. I'm hearing an overtone in the bass. It's like a second harmonic. It's around like 160, but it's clouding up the fundamental of the bass. Listen through here.
Him in my crystal ball, then heard his voice and he was calling. I've been hoping, may not be like it seems.
Don't be like
Saw him in my crystal ball.
So it's woo. I'm just hearing that overtone. Sorry for my singing, everybody. But that is louder than the fundamental, and it's not letting me hear the bottom of the bass and the fundamental of the note that he's playing. I'm hearing the second harmonic of it, so it's a little tricky.
Crystal ball, then heard his voice and he was calling. I've been hoping, may not be like it seems.
Don't be loving that man in there, no. Don't be loving. Don't be loving. Don't be loving that man in there.
But the fortune teller says that we'll be together again.
She saw the future. She heard a voice. Pay $20.
The 10th. I see you, Martin. Thanks.
For such rejoice.
Now I know that he's the one in my dreams.
Don't be loving that man in there, no. Don't be loving. Don't be loving. Don't be loving that man in there.
But the fortune teller says that we'll be together again. Well, she read my palm, said that my lines were good, but things ain't unfolded quite the way that they should. Is it in the stars or in my mind? In my mind, in my mind.
The guitar that's playing right now on the left side is a little bit pokey. I'm not sure. I think it's just an EQ balance thing. The volume balance, it being on top, I think is cool. But that guitar is kind of going on through the whole song, and I think it's the loudest, brightest thing that is distracting and pulling my ear. And if you're having trouble with the drums and the vocals, I would suggest muting this guitar and working on them without that in the mix to hear it. Not necessarily for like the rest of the mix, because you need to hear the contrast and all of that, obviously, but I think it would help you hone in on what's going on with the drums and the vocals. So just wanted to say that. Here we go.
Why I won't call, I don't know, girl. Let it end those tales of woe now. I've been thinking, may not be.
Also, taking care of that harmonic that's happening in the low mid range there on the bass, I think that that's going to clear up the mix like crazy, and you're going to be able to hear more of the tone of everything else because that mask is sitting on top of everything for me right now. So I'm positive that guy's sitting between like 1 and 250 ish or something like that. It's moving around as he moves around on the bass, but that harmonic is louder than the fundamental of the note, and it's really sitting on top of everything and clouding it up. I think it's clouding the vocal. I think it's clouding the drums. It's keeping you from dialing in the low end a little bit. So I think that might be Public Enemy number 1.
Like my dreams. Don't be loving that man in there, no. Don't be loving. Don't be loving. Don't be loving that man in there.
But the fortune teller says that we'll be together again.
Okay, awesome. I was just going to play with trying to solo up that frequency for you, but I don't think I'm quite set up to do that demo right now. But I might do that for future mix-ups because it'd be awesome if I could just hone in on that for you and be able to show you what I'm talking about. Gord, I think that's honestly the two biggest things. I would mute that guitar and then try to find that problem on the bass and see if that clears things up enough that you can hear the tone of the other instruments and decide if you like them. Reference tracks are a great thing. Definitely like listen to some other stuff to hear some other tones to get a target to shoot for kind of a thing. And then just as just like a, palate cleanser to be able to hear, this is what a vocal sounds like that I like. Here's where mine's at. Is it too mid-focused? Is it boxy? All of those things, and then dial it in. I really, really like this song, Gordon, and I hope that you keep working on it. I think you're doing great, and from memory, this is an improvement over the last version that I heard on it. So I'd love to hear another one. Although it's no coincidence that the song's called Tales of Woe and you're on version 5 and you feel like you're going in circles. So hopefully this break's going in circles for you. Mute that guitar, find that fundamental or find that overtone in the bass. See if you can tame that down a bit. Again, like I love Fab Filter Pro Q3. I love the Empirical Labs Big Freak and all the other EQs as well. So hopefully that'll help you out with it. But great song, and I think that you are on the right path. So very cool. All right, we are on to Palisades or I think I'm saying it right. It's no, I'm not typing it right because you have like an inverted V or something, or Pally bussin'. All right, here we go. Oh, that is a big waveform. All right, I'm gonna just turn my speakers down a little bit. Here we go. Let's see. Appreciate any feedback, both in arrangement and mix. Is it too busy? Facing mixing challenges with all of the layers. 200 plus tracks. Can you imagine if that was tape machines? There'd be like 10. There'd be like, what would that be? Like 15 tape machines? Okay. It's not tape though. And I'm sure this is not a song that would need tape. Here we go.
I've seen the journey. talk about, buzzing.
Bumpy as hell. Bussin'.
Awesome. Thank you for submitting. Cool. As you'll see, I pulled up decibel on this one to talk about some dynamic range stuff and turning mixed revision notes into lyrics. Yes, totally did. That's awesome. I had to listen to the voice. I was like, did he take my mixed revision notes and put them into a vocal? So I was going to die if he did. That's amazing. Very cool. So let's check some stuff out. So is it too busy? I have to be like forefront about this. I don't know the genre well enough to really decide that, like, as it stacks up to other things. From a mix perspective, I didn't feel like it was too busy. It felt like it was on brand with the genre. On the dynamic side, this isn't the most crushed thing I've seen. And this genre does call for small dynamics. But the trick is to still get punch when you're really coming down in your dynamic range like that. So let's talk about some ways that you can do that. And one of the main things that I heard in the song is the lack of attack on the kick drum. So there's plenty of sub on it, but I'm not hearing a whole lot of punch. So I just want to play one of the main sections here. And it could just be that the sub bass is just eating that kick alive, like for breakfast and then lunch and dinner as well. I would try like doing, do a side chain, like the typical side chain thing with the bass and the kick, just to allow the kick to speak more and punch more. The bass is doing a great job of all the sub information. There might be too much, and I would recommend like checking out a high pass filter on the bottom of the track and just bringing it up slowly until you feel like it's losing all the fun stuff on the bottom. But as you not to go too far in depth with this, but if you think about what a speaker has to do to reproduce 60 hertz or like to reproduce 40 hertz, it's got to travel a certain distance to move that amount of air, right? And if you've got it trying to reproduce 20 hertz, which is providing very little to no musical information, it's, having to travel its full width, right? Or its full length or depth or whatever. And if you can take a high pass filter and just filter some of that stuff out, and you tell it like, hey, don't worry about reproducing 20 hertz. Why don't you just focus on everything from, 30 and some change on up or whatever. Just cut out the 20 stuff and just do a better job at reproducing the stuff above that. So you're basically saying like, don't work as hard, work smarter, just work on reproducing this stuff, right? So try a high pass filter there. And the end result of that is you're going to have a much punchier speaker, right? Because it doesn't have to travel all this length on top of doing this as well. And it can just focus on reproducing the stuff that it's good at. So high pass filter, it doesn't have to be super high. I'm guessing that for a track like this, you'd probably land somewhere in the 30s, but the back CQ is amazing for this. Amazing for this. But any high pass filter will do. The slope of the backs is very gentle, and it always works well in cleaning up the bottom for me, and does so in a way that's not like completely a phase mess from EQ. Yeah. So Martin says could use more click on the kick. That would definitely help it punch out, but also try like the side chaining thing too. Yeah, you guys got my strobe lights going today. That's awesome. Okay, so dynamic range wise, I'd pulled up decibel. It really isn't like way overly smashed. It's loud, but it's not like as crazy as some things get. So don't worry about that so much. Just make sure that you're not like lopping off all the transients of everything, because you end up with something that's flat. and it's not going to have punch and power and all that. Some of the vocal samples were hard to hear because of all the stuff going on in the other synths. There might be some things that you could do with EQ to carve some information out, or try to focus on the vocal in specific points that allow it to speak better. There could be too much low mid information going on in the vocal. Just see if you can play around with some stuff to help those things speak out a little bit more. All of the layers, the 200 plus tracks. A tip on that: there's a video of Chris Lord-Alge mixing something that's completely unrelated. It's a Daughtry song, but in that video he talks about collapsing tracks down. So when you have a session that's like 200 plus tracks, getting it down, like feed some auxes with a bunch of those tracks. So if like, 10 of them are sound effects or something like that happen once in the song, get a balance between those, put them on one fader, hide the tracks or something like that, or just get it down to a smaller amount of faders, do subgroups and submixing. So you're just dealing with less elements and just free up some brain share so that the session's manageable with it. If you're having a challenge with it, just try paring it down, get like-minded instruments involved with each other that maybe you can do specific processing on the whole to a group of instruments versus just individuals. But stuff like that can really help make a track more manageable. Another thing I'll do in a track is I'll strip the silence out of the track, so when I'm looking at the screen, I just see the clips where they're happening in the timeline, and then I'll going from top to bottom, left to right, just like a book. Something that happens at the beginning of the song is at the top of the session, and things that happen only in the end of the song are more toward the bottom of the session. I'd like go further than that to just do like drum groups at the top, then followed by bass, then followed by like synths. Let's say I have 20 synths. It's going to look like a something at an angle or whatever, where like the stuff that happens in the beginning of the song is at the top of that group of tracks, and then as it moves down, it stair steps down. So good stuff to figure out for session management. You say that your sidechain compression probably isn't aggressive enough, so I might just double it up with some volume shaper to finesse the space for the kick with the parts where the bass is really competing. Yeah, and play with EQ before using all the fancy tricks like sidechaining and everything like that too. Just try making space for those two instruments. Like let the kick speak at a certain range, and let the bass speak at a certain range, but make room inside of the other one for the other one to do so, if that makes sense. So make little pockets for them. You don't want to go too far with that, or it can sound really weird too, but awesome. Okay. Let's see, anything else there? Yes, so Karen asks, if you use strip silence, do you put fade in and fade out on those sections? I do. I have a fade. I always like do a fade in, fade out on any clip that I have. I always do that just for safety. It's like a little paranoid thing, I think, from the past, but I still do it to this day. And I use SoundFlow, and I have a script that Andrew Sheps helped me make that goes track by track and does all the strip silence for me. And after it strips the silence, it automatically applies a fade on the beginning and end of those very, very short fades, but with like the minimum, but it's a fade nonetheless. Cool. Yeah, I hope that helps. I'm wondering what else I can give you that'll be useful on this track. I'm just gonna listen to one more or two more bars of it. 2 seconds here.
Got a full-fledged, club-ready fucking conveyor here.
So the other thing that might help is like some of the bass, like all of the subs, that bass is taking up so much space. And it might help to cut some of the lows out of the sides as well. Again, the Bax is great for this. Bax Master specifically, you can do MS with it, and you could just cut low end out of the sides of the mix. That bass feels good and wide, but it just feels like it's taking up so much mix that some guts need to be taken out of it a little bit. Trim some of the fat on it. It can still be a big boy, but you got to like take a little bit of meat out of it. All right. I hope that helps. I do have to get going here, so I don't want to get to the other two songs that we got. So Felgrep, here's our next one. Palisades, thanks for bouncing that out. I'm glad that we got to it, and I hope that there's some useful feedback inside of that, because I know you worked hard to get it done. Okay, so let me make sure I got your name right. Spelling it wrong as I type it in here. Sorry, Felgrip, can you put your song in here one more time? Because I wrote down your username, but not the song. So just let me know the song name. I'm going to do the other song first. Karen asks, do you recommend VCAs? I use VCAs in a little bit like basically use a VCA. I use folder tracks a lot inside of Pro Tools, and before folder tracks, I used a lot of auxes. The only difference between like that workflow and the VCA workflow is if you're bringing, just trying to think of gain structure here. It just depends if you're dealing with masters in that case. Never mind. Not really a big change. It's just like a group master fader. So aux is kind of the same. If I was feeding an aux with a bunch of members of a VCA group, if I was bringing that fader down, I would be trimming the amount of level getting into an aux master or an aux return from those tracks, like a subgroup of them. So that would change my gain stage in those. So I traditionally have not used VCAs a lot. Andrew uses them a ton. I do use a lot of routing folders and all that. So hopefully that helps. I wouldn't say it's just a live mixing technique. They can be very useful. And the idea is really to like pare down a bunch of instruments to a smaller amount of faders and work with something more manageable, right? Routing folders happen to do that for me, so I don't use VCAs, if that makes sense. But they might work well. Okay, Felgrep is not your name, just one of your band's names. Awesome. Okay, thanks for the song name. I'm going to hit Because Your Love first from Carlos Rick, and then we'll get to your song. All right, guys, here we go.
And just like that, faded away. In the town where I was born, they don't understand that there's no room for anyone's success. I pack my bags and get the hell away from there. Along the way, I learned, my friend, hiding your tears is not the best thing for yourself. Because the pain that comes deep from your chest sometimes can only be sedated with a drink. Si, senor, there's no shame I want to sing. These lonely blues that keeps on ringing in my ears. Because your love was the only thing for me.
Just going to stop there. There's a ton of top end, almost like noise on top of the vocal. I would try a low pass filter and just take off a little bit, shave off a little bit of the very, very, very top highs on those vocals. Not so far down that you feel like it's getting muffled. Go until you feel like it's getting muffled, then pull it back. But I think like just clearing up some of that top end stuff is going to remove some of this feel from it and make things feel a little bit more clear.
I had a house, but had no home. Doesn't matter where I am, my luck is gone. I ask myself, what the hell I'm doing here? Should I sing, should I cry, should I drink? Along the way, I learned, my friend, hiding your tears is not the best thing for yourself. Because the pain that comes deep from your chest sometimes can only be sedated with a drink.
A ver, pinches músicos, las que tripas, tóquenle, cabrones.
I see, senor, there's no shame I want to sing. These lonely blues that keeps on ringing in my ears. Because your love was the only thing for me. Si, senor, there's no shame I want to sing. These lonely blues that keeps on ringing in my ears. Because your love was the only thing for me. Because your love.
Yeah, I think you hear some of that noise here as it gets cut out. Yeah, so see if there's anything you can do about that top end noise. Maybe just a low pass, or it might be a bigger job, or like a job for Isotope. You mentioned this is like a home recording from a friend's band, so that's something to look at. I think if you clear that up, things are going to feel great. I think this already feels really good. Watch out for overcompression on some of those instruments, especially on music like this. Some of that punchy guitar stuff that does pop out once in a while is a big part of the sound. I've worked on some mariachi music, and I know like as soon as you start taking some of that stuff away, it flattens out the instrument. It doesn't feel as authentic to it. So maybe check that out. The bass, I felt like I didn't start noticing the bass until about halfway through the song. I'm pretty sure it was in the beginning of it. Yeah. So maybe just some focus on the bass, maybe bringing it forward a little bit, but I also really like the balance that you have going. So I wouldn't tear it apart too much, or like, if you feel like you're, pulling apart I don't have a good analogy, but if you feel like you're pulling it apart, don't mess with it. Just maybe looking for a little bit more definition in the bass, but I like the balance. I love the pan guitars, like Palisades, send that too. Loves guitar on the left, sounds a bit muddy. Or wait, no, he said, really dig the panning and separation on the guitars. Yeah. So, that's all really well done. The, tone in the guitars, if, like you said, the one is, sounding a little bit muddy on the left, that's something to mess with. If you start pulling out a lot of the bottom of the guitars or the low mids of those, I think that you're going to notice some more of the artifacts on the top of the vocals. So you'll have to play with it. Cool. James Peters says vocal edit on the B Vox to line up the last word just before the outro section. Yeah, so let's check that out. Here we go.
Because you love.
Yeah, so maybe some vocal tightening on there. But yeah, overall, I think it sounds really good. Very cool, and it has a texture to it of a home recording, and I think you should lean into that and let it be what it is, and that's a cool thing. Hope that's useful. Awesome. All right, we got one song left. Here we go. This is from Felgrep, and you wrote me the name of the song, Rune Almas. Let's see what we're ending up with for our last song of the day. Awesome. Here we go. Okay. Looks like a lot of dead space at the end. Nothing out here. Okay. So the song is not 12 minutes long, is what we've learned. Okay. Here we go from the top. Also, mariachi music gets strobe lights as well. Here we go.
can easily touch. I'm gonna set my law on the David Mona list. I'm gonna set my law 100 with heat.
How awesome would it be if that last reverb tail was 6 minutes long? Like it actually went to the end of this timeline. That would be pretty amazing. In fact, that is my only feedback, is that we need to make that tail last that long. No. Okay, awesome job. Very cool. This is a really great song, great writing, very cool. And I was reading your comments before. So Rune wrote that this is a song I've been working on for a while, and I'm going to make a new mix of it because the girl singing with me died sadly last year. It's my band with me on guitar and vocals. Awesome. Very, very sorry to hear about your loss. And she sounds beautiful on this. And, yeah, I think it's amazing that you're doing a new mix of it and keeping her around and in your thoughts like that. So, wishing you strength and everything. And again, sorry for your loss. Okay, so let's check out some stuff in the mix here, and we'll go through. So it says that this is an early mix. So at times I felt like the bass guitar was pretty loud. There's some other things that are maybe more obvious, but the bass is a little loud at times. I would maybe work a little bit on the compression for that to just kind of like hone it in a little bit. And then it does sometimes get a little muddy in the low mids, as do a few other things inside of the track. So I'm wondering, it's possible that there's like a monitoring issue going on too, where like things are a little bit bright in your studio. So make sure you have a couple different places to check it on. I do hear some low end phase issues again, and the common theme on these is just phase issues overall, either from stereo widening or just phase issues. I hear some low end phase stuff happening. That sounds like it could be happening from the overheads, and that the overheads might be out of phase with each other, or there could be a phase discrepancy. Plugin that I love for this, I believe there's a demo if you want to try it, Sound Radix Auto Align. There's also ones like Waves in Phase. I think Melda Productions might have one that's free. Definitely check it out. But I know Sound Radix Auto Align works for me almost every time. It's awesome. There are times it doesn't, but it usually locks things in really well. And you're a Puremix member, go watch Daryl Thorpe's new video of him mixing the Foo Fighters, or the DGs in this case. He goes through exactly how he sets up Auto Align on a drum kit, and it's amazing. Talk about turning the focus ring. It's really awesome. So definitely go check that out and look for any phase issues that might be happening in your drum recording. I think that'll end up clearing up a lot of issues inside of this mix, and it'll definitely allow you to hear some other stuff that's happening in the mix, because of things that those, the low end phase stuff is kind of covering up on you. The kick is a little bit boxy to me. The snap of it, while being boxy, the snap of the kick, the beater attack, is louder than the snare drum. So it's louder than the backbeat to me, which feels a little bit odd. So I would play with the balance of that. Sometimes people just like a kick heavy mix, and that's okay. But yeah, just be aware of the balance between the backbeat and the kick and make sure that you dig that. The recording has some artifacts to me, especially toward the beginning of the song. almost like a broken cable kind of thing, but it just sounds like something's going up with the frequency response of it, and that things are a little bit weird. So I don't know if maybe there's a little bit of sonic work to be done on the vocal. The performance of the vocal is amazing, and I'm speaking of the male vocal, your vocal on here. So if you can deal with the sonics of it, I wouldn't say re-record it, because I think like the whole track has emotion, and it feels great, and it's awesome. Just some sonic stuff in there. I did hear some mouth noises. Isotope RX mouth declick is amazing for clearing that stuff up. This takes away some of the stuff that pulls you out of the mix, but that's not going to make or break your song on this case. I thought the guitar solo was insanely heartfelt, so great playing on that. You played with a lot of motion. You played like you left space in there. You were speaking instead of just playing scales, and I loved it. Very cool. The floor at the end, this is going to be a good example of the phase issues that I heard. So I'm going to play from here. We're listening to the floor tom hit. Happens over on the left, and it's wildly out of phase. So that's going to basically clue your ear into what I'm talking about. Yeah, so that guy, it's like happening like 3 feet out that way from my speaker. And I'm just going to check on decibel here. Yeah, you can kind of see it on a phase meter too. Just something to be aware of. Just again, like just check the phase on the drums and see what happens there. There's some other kind of muddy stuff going on the guitars. I think if you clear up the drums, that'll give you a good foundation of where to work from. The other thing I wanted to say on this was going back to what I was saying before about finding the core of the song and what's important. Find what is the meat of the song. So obviously the vocal is a big part of it. The guitars are a big part of it. Maybe it's the drums for you. Maybe it's like if you thought about what the skeleton of the song is, if it's drums, bass, vocal, or if it's start with drums, bass, vocal if you can. Get a good balance going between those elements, and then start bringing all the guitars up and into it. Like find the story, find what it's about, and then start bringing up all of the other stuff that might be more like dressing. Even rhythm guitars can be like dressing. But get the core of the song working, then bring in everything else, and just really keep your mind's eye focused on what is the song, like what's important, what needs to be prevalent to the listener. What are you telling the listener to listen to? You know, you're painting the experience for them, you're painting the emotion, and it's all done with balances and all of these things that we do. But you need to have a clear vision of that yourself as you move through it. And I think that'll help out a lot. I hope that that's useful feedback, and thank you for submitting. Thank you everybody for submitting, and thank you guys for tuning in to another Mix Tank. That was super fun. It's great to see everybody here, and I hope the feedback's been useful, and I appreciate your guys' comments in the chat. That's why we put them up here in the box, because you guys have great feedback that everybody needs to see. So that is the whole thing of Mix Tank too. So it's a community think tank for your mixing. So thank you everybody for tuning in. We will be here Friday again. Reminder, Friday, Michael Brower live stream, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm so pumped for that. I'm going to be at Flux for that with Michael and Fernando. And it's going to be a blast. If you haven't gotten your questions in, check your emails, because you guys have an email from us where you can submit your question for Michael and Fernando. Anything that you're still struggling with the template, make sure you get it in there. If you have other questions, we'll try to get to those too, but we're really focusing on trying to clear up any confusion around Michael's mix template and Brower-S process. So hope that this has been great, and I hope to see you guys on Friday. If not, I'll see you back here next Monday for another live stream. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Guys, we're back. We're back. Hold on a second. I missed a song from Jorg. I don't want to miss anybody's song if I can. I was still here and I saw your comment come in, Jorg, so I'm going to try and hit it really quick. I hope you're still here with us. Stand by 1 second. I have to load up Mix Tank again. We're going to hit that song. So stand by. Let me see what the name of the song was. It was from Jorg. I'm just searching here. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. I see it. Whiskey. Okay, got it. All right, guys. One more song. Here we go.
Soon as your whiskey touched my lips, you set a fire to my song, and I'm gonna take it down to heaven. We push and pull and won't let go. It's a never-ending merry come and go round once more. And know you're so insatiable, so take me down again. Moan and scream and don't pretend. Wanna hear my name through gritted teeth and a heavy breath. Just lose yourself with me and you, and tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance along the satin till the morning. Heaven knows you're what I need, and I can only hope that what you see is you and me, and never letting go. I'm gonna tear you down so hard, you're gonna be calling out for God, and he's gonna let you know he's looking down, and just keep going. Take me down again. Moan and scream and don't pretend. Wanna hear my name through gritted teeth and a heavy breath. Just lose yourself with me and you, and tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance along the satin till the morning. Shadow you advance across the room, a failed addiction, and you got me jonesing harder now. So take me down again. Moan and scream and don't pretend. Wanna hear my name through gritted teeth and a heavy breath. Whoa, lose yourself with me and you. Tell me what you wanna do, and we'll dance. We'll dance till the morning.
Awesome. Okay, thanks for submitting this, Jorg. Sorry that I missed it earlier. Didn't mean to skip over it. Totally cool that it's a Produce Like a Pro track, which is awesome. You guys, if you want to play with this multi-track, Produce Like a Pro. Awesome. Okay, so a couple thoughts on the mix. I dropped a comment on there in case you left the stream, but so the vocal feels a little bit loud to me overall, but one thing that I do love about this is that it's not overcompressed. The vocal feels very dynamic. It gets louder on the loud notes, and it doesn't feel like somebody's just like holding them in a box or anything like that. The only thing I would say is just ride the fader, automate that vocal, keep the dynamic of it, but just ride it on some of the louder words so that it stays as a part of the mix and doesn't become so disconnected from the rest of the instruments in the track. I think that there's a little bit of a low mid buildup in the vocal. I would look at around, like the 200 to 300 range, the kind of maybe see if you can take out some of the cloud that might be over top of that vocal that's happening in there. And going from that, I would look at the snare balance in there. Karen mentioned that the snare gets a little lost. I agree with that. The snare feels way behind the rest of the kit. And thinking about groove again, the backbeat is so important to a song like this and just keeping the flow going. And when we lose that backbeat, the groove kind of falls apart on it. And it doesn't push forward. You can make a track feel sluggish that way if you want to, like just with balance. You pull the backbeat back and the groove has a different feel. The forward motion of the song can change, and all of that just because of balance. And just for more clarity on that, think about how drummers play when they do the things like that, and the accents for to accentuate the groove and all of that. So you have the same power to be used for evil or good. So I would also consider adding some more excitement to the drums. I feel like they could use a little bit more transient attack and snap to bring them forward. I do like the dark, loungy club vibe, the NYC club vibe of this thing. And I'm not saying like get rid of that and do bright drums and metal drums or anything like that. Like obviously style appropriate, but I think that they could use a little bit more clarity and detail. I do love that they're not overly bright, like I said, except for the hi-hat. There's a very high resonant peak in the hi-hat that I think we can hear around here. I'll just play it and just listen to the very upper range of the hi-hat, like 10K-ish. There's a resonance happening up there. One, it feels a little loud in the mix, but there's also that high resonant that's just a little bit annoying to the ear, and it makes it feel like it's closer to me and more important than the guitar solo. So watch out for the balance on that hat. The guitar solo feels a little bit unfocused to me, like there's some phasey tricks going on in there too, like could be a reverb thing. Just something about it feels like it just needs to come into focus a little bit more there. So watch out for whatever effects you're putting on it. And then in terms of the vocal balance, again, think about like the snare level. As you bring up that snare level, it might help with the volume of the vocal too. I usually use like snare as a good reference point for where should the vocal sit. And I think in terms of depth, sorry for everybody who's seen me say this already, but if the snare is here, I think about like if the vocal is the most important thing and it's a tune like this, I'd probably put the vocal in front of the snare. But right now you have the snare way back here. So I would just kind of tighten those guys up. And then on a louder rock song, sometimes I'll place the vocal behind it. But I think bringing that snare up is going to help the vocal sit better as well. So maybe fix your snare balance and then do the automation thing I talked about with the vocal. Just try to make those all kind of lay in pretty well. Awesome. That is a very, very good song, and I love it. So thank you for submitting that. And sorry I missed it the first time around. Glad I saw that before I hit the sign off button. And I missed somebody else on there. Hey, Merrick, I will definitely get you next time. Please just remind me in the chat and let me know. I'll find you next time. Unfortunately, I got to run because I got to get somewhere, but I will definitely get you next time. So thank you for your patience and understanding with that. All right, guys, for real this time. See you next time.